Do I really have to do cardio?
No.
How do we know if I'm overtraining?
Ready?
Should I cut weight for this competition?
How much protein am I supposed to always?
Is it ironic that a podcast about Strongman is hosted by a woman?
I think that's kind of the point.
Welcome back to Lift and Load. Sometimes you just gotta listen to your gut. So who better to bring on than Celia Cavalli? Not only a very dear friend of mine, but someone who has gone through the ringer with everything from autoimmune to self-diagnosing and treating her own gut health issues. And as a result, has become a huge advocate for those who are trying to do the same. We brought her on this week because we wanted to see not only how there might be a link between health, wellness, and making yourself better for tomorrow by adjusting your gut biome today, but also talk a little bit about her and her own personal adventures and how she got to be where she is, juggling not only from parenthood to being a voice for thousands. With that, it's time to lock in, lift heavy, load up. We're talking guts. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I did come off raspy on that one.
That's
gonna,
sexy though. We like it.
I'm gonna see that's gonna crack halfway through.
We're into it.
One thing about this show that I've had an incredible opportunity with is I'm meeting all these people. I have met, I will somehow reach out to someone and say, hey, you are an incredible strong woman, strong man. You are all these things. Do you want to join and come on the show? People are like, yeah, of course, which has been flooring me. You are actually the first person I've had on that I've known, and I'm really excited about it. So I will give the context in my version of Celia and how I came to know you and knew you had to be on this show. And then I'd love for you to talk about the background. Well, I saw you in snippets. So I bought Hit Fit Gym in Claremont last summer, and it was like the second day, and I had a couple trainers that are coming up to me. They're like, oh, we have a morning crew. There's a couple of them like that are just ride or dies, and you're going to love them. I'm like, cool. And then I meet a couple of people, and then I see this adorable, just pregnant woman just crushing her workouts. And I'm just like, for two reasons, I really love that. One, I loved that you were working out. Well, spoiler alert, it was you. You were working out while you were pregnant, because that's something I want to get into, because you were moving, you were being very safe. I mean, it was just clearly just like staying active and making sure you're still taking care of yourself. And you were also just remarkably nice and remarkably well-versed. And then as we talked, I realized you had a really interesting background in history in everything from gut health to autoimmune. And you'd been on this kind of journey yourself that brought you to being the active and outspoken person that you are. So that is how I kind of like grew to evolve knowing who Celia is. So please, for those of us listening, like try to catch us through your background. I know it's all over the place, but how did you get here? How did you become this incredible mom and business owner and gut health guru and autoimmune champion? I will use that word. Like
Champion. I like
yeah,
that.
I like it. Right.
I feel like I've lived like a million lives. Like I was telling you before we got on the show, I've, been in so many industries, primarily in real estate, but I did work in health for a very long time. I actually got started in supplements when I was a teenager. And it was
like
totally
selling supplements? Or
yes.
Okay.
So I worked for GNC, Complete Nutrition. I've worked a couple other places too, but I just loved bettering myself. And so it was really like this evolution of like, I wanted to see how much better I could get. And fitness is a huge part of that. And I'm sure you as a gym owner, you know that like everyone who's coming into the gym wants to feel good about themselves. Yeah. Otherwise, like, why would they be here at the butt crack of dawn, Right.
So, and you came in early a lot too. You were one of those butt crack of dawn people.
I started doing the 5:30, by the way, or like 6 o'clock. And I really like that crew. It's like busy in here. I was shocked. I was like, wow, it's actually like.
It's the pre-work people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go get it in and then go home.
It's a good vibe.
I've always been like that, but go on. Yeah.
I got to give you kudos though, because this gym, I was telling my husband, he's like, why do you like love it so much? I'm like, it's the vibes here. Like the people are great. Like everything here is just
thanks.
Top notch. And I got to give you kudos for that.
Thank you. It's fun.
But back to my story. So I was in the health space, started off in supplement stores, ended up doing my first competition. So I did bodybuilding competitions.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I've done quite a few.
It's so funny. I think probably of all the episodes we've recorded on Lift and Load, like half the people have like dabbled in bodybuilding. So I'm going to start having that as a like prerequisite of like, have you done a bodybuilding show and tell me about it more. But okay. So wait, when was that?
So I started in 2012,
Okay.
but I started training for bodybuilding shows in 2010. But I broke my arm, and so I couldn't do my first show. So I had this weird, like, my coach was like, there's something weird about you, where every single show I would like break something or something would happen. And the show that I actually ended up doing was in 2012. It was in Minnesota, which is where I'm from.
Okay. You got
Originally.
a little Minnesota on
A little
that
Minnesota.
one.
Oh, you hear me say boat or bag, and it's over.
Oh
like,
my God, you go bag.
boat, a bag. Yeah, it's like, it's very
No.
Minnesota.
My sister-in-law's from Minnesota, and I've made fun of her saying Minnesota so many times that I say that normally, and I've ruined myself.
I love it.
So anyways,
It's cute. So I'm from Minnesota. So I went up there for my first competition, and my spray tan girl, who follows me on Instagram, by the way, we met that way, and I absolutely love her. Like, she's hilarious. I was on my way to her place, her business, to get spray tan for the show, because you have to be like dark, dark, dark. I was in a rental car, and this guy rear ends me, and the ambulance comes to take me away, right? And I'm like, hold up. I got a show tomorrow. I need to go get sprayed. She saw me walk from my totaled rental car over to her spray tan place. She heard the whole accident. She heard everything happen.
Oh
and
my
she saw me
God.
walk from there, and I was like limping and like all like feeling
were
awful.
you okay?
I mean, kind of, but I just was like, I've trained so many times for this damn thing that I just got to go through with it, right? So I get in there, and she starts cracking up when she hears my story. So to this day, she's like, you have no excuse to not make it in for your spray tan. She's like, Celia Cavalli made it in 2012 when she had been in an accident and like literally
Limping.
hobbled in to get spray tanned. And I'm like, yep.
You're more hardcore than I am.
So
That's fine.
I have a very high pain tolerance.
Okay.
But I think it's because I'm just like, I just want to get through, like I want to get to the end result. So I can kind of like shut down and just continue on. But that was my first show. So I actually placed in that show. I think I was number 3. I think I won 3rd place in that show.
Oh my God.
So that was awesome. Back then it wasn't what it is now. It was a lot easier because it was a smaller, it wasn't as big as it is now.
Got it.
My last competition was in 2021. So I did compete rather recently. And then I decided I wanted to get into running, which became kind of like my thing. But back to my history, got into the health field and eventually got my personal training license, and then added on fitness nutrition specialization because I realized my clients weren't getting the results they really wanted. And why was that? Through investigation, they would work out with me. They'd have a killer workout. Some of them wouldn't come back because they were so sore. I'm sure you've probably had that.
That happens. Yeah.
And
I'll send like mental health checks. I'm like, how you doing? They're like, I can't sit on the toilet. I'm like,
can't
sorry,
get out of bed.
We're good.
They can't come back to you for like a week. They're like, I'm just so sore.
Yeah.
So like, I was training a lot of older women. So my like primarily, this was in Vegas. My primarily focus group was like around 35 to 55. So that was like my main people. And they just weren't getting the results that they really wanted. They were holding on to excess weight here, inflammation. And so I was like, I got to figure out what's going on. And that's when opened the door to nutrition. And I just dove full into that and really like studied it. And they started getting amazing results. And from there, it was really like, I was like, nutrition's where it's at. There's so much focus on the workout. And still to this day, people come to me and they're like, it's just the workout, right? And I'm like, the workout's huge. Don't get me wrong. That's a big part of it. If you want to build muscle, which you need to absolutely build muscle, especially as we get older.
Right.
We need that muscle so that we don't get wasted away. But the big thing is really your nutrition at home. So like when you leave, are you going and getting Dunkin' Donuts afterwards? I mean, maybe once in a while, but like it's not going to be an everyday thing because people think, oh, I earned it. I went to the gym and I earned the pizza, the donuts. And my take on food is very interesting. So we'll probably get into that, but it's through my experience.
Yeah, please do.
But anyways, so further on down the road, in 2018, I had my first autoimmune experience and it spiraled downhill. And within 3 months, I was so sick I couldn't even work.
Oh my God.
And it was so bad. When I tell you, it was horrible. I had every symptom. Like my symptoms were like a CVS receipt. It just kept going and going and going.
Oh no.
And it was so bad. My first symptom was vertigo. I don't know if you've ever had vertigo.
I haven't, but I've had friends who have, and it is debilitating.
Very debilitating.
Yeah.
So it was that, and then I was having 5-hour bloody noses every day, and like all this crazy stuff, like migraines, just all this stuff.
All autoimmune.
Rashes, yes, all. And I went to
And did you know it was autoimmune at that time, or?
I figured I knew something was wrong. And I was just coming out from being vegan because I lived in California.
Listen, I get it.
And all those California girlies are like, Erwan, go get my $80 smoothie, you know, like not trying to hate on.
They're yummy, but like, yo, I have a budget sometimes, but I was actually a vegetarian for like 8 years, like high school and going into college. Yeah. And so I get that. Long story short.
I think a lot of people get into it because they love animals.
Yeah.
And like I have animals. I'm sure you love animals. It's like we all love our animals.
I also love a steak.
But yes, steak is where it's at. And we'll talk about that. So I was coming off of that, probably very vitamin B12 deficient. And basically I realized I'm like, something's really wrong. Like there's something really, really wrong with me. Started going to doctors. No one could tell me what was wrong. Started going to specialists and eventually got diagnosed with multiple autoimmune conditions.
Got it.
And I realized, you know what? These doctors just want to throw medication at the problem and they can't even tell me what's wrong with me. You know, they can't tell me what caused this. And my mantra in that time was, I wasn't always like this. So can I just reverse it? Like there's got to be something that went wrong. And I became obsessed with figuring out what went wrong so that I could reverse it. Because I don't take medication. I don't even take Tylenol. Like it was so hard for me. I gave birth 2 months, almost 3 months ago. She'll be 3 months.
She's so cute, by the way. She's like the world's best little gym baby. I love it. She is better behaved in the gym than half the adults I know.
When you said that, I was like dying on the inside.
She really is, though. She really is. Like she's so great.
She loves it here. So I gave birth. I had a emergency C-section due to a couple things that had happened. My fluid dropped really low and she was basically didn't have any amniotic fluid.
Oh no.
So she was breech, which was fun. The way my I was really teeny when I got pregnant. I was 110 pounds and I went up to 150. So that was
that's a big jump. Yeah.
Huge jump. But the way she carried was her head was like right here, her butt down here. Long story short, C-sections are no fun.
No, they're very invasive. They cut through all the layers of the abdominal wall. Like you're getting cut open. I mean, for good reason, but it's traumatic on the body.
Yeah, it's a lot. So they do put you on pain pills.
Yeah.
They put me on opioids the first night and I was throwing up all night and I was like, I can't do that. So I went on ibuprofen and it completely destroyed my gut, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the gut stuff because that's a whole other thing for you. And one thing so you're so funny because I know you don't like pain meds and there's times where you're very holistic, but you're also very well versed in modern medicine.
Yes.
Your husband is a doctor and that's a relevant thing. Like we're fans of doctors. And so how do you kind of grapple with listening to your body and at the same time figuring out this, doctors are telling me this, but I'm like, how do you handle that? Because it's very important. And this is a thing for all listeners, like, please listen to your doctor, please take medical advice. But something that I believe in is take some of it with a grain of salt and also listen to your body and don't be afraid to keep looking for more answers. Don't be afraid to ask more questions. So how do you do that?
Well, I think it's important to say this. I fully agree with everything you're saying, but doctors have no nutrition background unless they have gone out of their way to get that nutrition background. And I'm married to a doctor, so I can say this.
Yeah.
But a lot of doctors, they're trained in acute things, right? So if you break your leg, if you have a C-section, you know, modern medicine's amazing. There's so many things we can do. Now we can keep people alive so much longer than we could, you know, even 50 years ago. Modern medicine has so many breakthroughs. But that being said, those breakthroughs are all in acute things for the most part. When it comes to chronic illness or when it comes to gut health, there's very little that's understood. And the medical world is so far behind in nutrition. They're so far behind in health, like overall health. They know what to do when things go wrong. For a short time, you know, like they can fix something, like amazing things they can do. You know, you look at plastic surgeons; they can do like amazing work.
Yeah.
Or you know, emergency trauma situations. But when it comes to chronic illness, almost every single person who's been through autoimmune, like I have, will tell you that going to doctors is endless. It's exhausting. It's endless. They just want to put you on medications. They don't really know what's really going on.
Yeah.
They're just kind of guessing.
Yeah.
And even autoimmune diagnoses are like a process of exclusion.
Right.
And I was diagnosed with lupus, celiac, scleroderma, and then there's a couple other things.
My gosh.
But it's all the same thing. It's dysfunction of the body. The body is screaming for help. And how that shows is based upon your genetics and the expression that your genetics is putting through. So you can put the same inputs in two different people and their genes will dictate what autoimmune conditions that they end up getting. But it's the same thing. It's a stressor, like a dysregulation that's causing them to have this problem. But it's just, it could be two separate, totally separate things.
Right. It's presenting itself just different. And I've noticed that people, so I have clients that have Hashimoto's, I have ones that have lupus, and but usually, and they'll all come to me with the same, it's got to be the same piece of the internet where they go, I hear I go gluten-free. I hear I go anti-inflammatory diet. And so is that what, did you do that too? Did you go on the internet and say, what do I do?
So this is the interesting part. So I got sick and I was bedridden for a really long time.
Yeah.
And battling for, like, literally every day was a battle for my life. There was so many days it was so hard to pull through, and I just had to stick to my mantra of like, I wasn't always like this. I can get back to the vibrant person I used to be. You wouldn't have even recognized. It was so awful.
I know. I feel like you're so vibrant now. Like you're so full of life and excited. And
it was so, I called my mom on Christmas in 2018 and was like, I don't think I'm going to make it through Christmas. Like, I'm not going to pull through because my liver was failing. Like, there's so many things going wrong. And it's so hard to look back at that time because I feel like that wasn't really me, but I felt like I was robbed of that like 5.5 years of my life. But I dedicated so much time to studying the human body. I probably have like a master's degree and all this stuff because I just day in and day out, all I did was how can I fix myself? And I would watch YouTubes. I'd learn, there's so much good stuff online.
Listen, YouTube University can be very great. And
yeah.
that's part of when and we've talked about this. That's why I started Lift and Load to begin with, because there's so much good online and so much slightly different opinions online. And then there's a lot of bad online. So as a person who's arguably at the weakest point of their life, they're looking for answers. They're desperate. You know, it can be awful because you go on and go, oh my God, there's all the options. Therefore, I'm going to do none of them.
Conflicting. There's so much conflicting. And still to this day, I like laugh at how much conflicting stuff there is online because there's just all these experts, right? And they'll tell you this is bad. Like you see even studies where it's like, eggs will kill you. And then the next second, eggs are the most amazing thing. And it's like, there's so much conflicting. So you really got to listen to your gut.
Yeah.
And you really got to try. It's kind of like an N1 experiment. You got to try what works best for you and just try things. I tried a lot of things. And the people who have followed me on Instagram have seen me evolve through this process. The people who've been here since 2019 have seen the OGs have seen the whole thing. So I started off just extreme elimination diet. And it worked to a certain point, but there was still something that was off. And eventually in 2020, I found Dr. Peter Osborne, he's great. For a certain subset of people, he's really great. He does grain-free. So his book is, I think it's No Grain, No Pain is his book. I've seen it, yeah. And it helped a lot. I was able to start walking again. I wasn't able to walk. You'd be shocked. I was so sick I couldn't walk. My legs just wouldn't work. I had ataxia and vertigo so bad.
Oh my God.
That I couldn't feel my legs most days. It was horrifying.
Yeah.
So he got me back to that point where I was barely able to get through a day and I was able to work again and all of that. And then in 2021, I found Dr. Anthony Shafee, who completely changed my life. I have to thank him so much. But he is carnivore diet. Like he is the OG, like super strict. Like this is beef, salt, water. And I did that. I went on like the Lion diet, like Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson daughter. But I went on that diet and it completely healed me. Like everything went away. It was a miracle. And I got sharper. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm running 5Ks. I'm running half marathons.
Yeah.
I'm beating, I'm winning these races. And I'm like, this is just insane. I couldn't even fathom that a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, going from not walking to running. Now, do you think so? I've heard so many pros for carnivore. I've heard so many pros for vegan. I've heard so many pros for all the different diets. And from a purely nutritional perspective, so usually I'll caveat this, people will use those diets as a source of fat loss, and they'll use those diets as a source of losing weight. The thing with and the word diet is I struggle with in general. The thing with any lifestyle change involving nutrition is if you were eating burgers 5 times a day and chips and all this junk and you switch to carnivore, obviously you're going to lose weight. You're going to feel better. You cut out the crap. If you were doing the same diet and you switch to vegan, obviously you're going to lose weight. You cut out the crap. And
so you're cutting out the unprocessed food.
Exactly. Yeah. You're cutting out the bad stuff. So many people go, oh, vegan is the way. Oh, carnivore is the way. All these things. I think we are all the human species, but biologically we all can be very different. So I'd love to know your opinion. And do you think that diet is what just your body needed and therefore put you on the right path? Or do you think there's something to be said about maybe going more towards meats? And I don't have the answer. I ask just because I've always leaned towards I think my body reacts really well to like, I know I do great on seafood. Like
Seafood's amazing.
I love seafood. I love beef. Poultry's fine, but I don't really feel a certain way. I know other people that are totally different. It makes them, I have a friend cannot eat beef. She gets puffy, feels inflamed,
Wow.
hates it. Yeah.
Interesting.
But she can eat turkey and chicken and poultry like it's going out of style. Yeah. And so what do you think on that? Do you think it's, because I'd love to kind of segue that into your knowledge now about gut health, because you really started researching it. So when you look at the microbiome, like how do you think that's different for people? What do you think they should try?
So it's really interesting because the microbiome is still really unknown. There's a lot that people like. It's kind of funny because people think a probiotic is going to fix everything.
Right.
And the truth of it is that a probiotic is a living species of bacteria, but we are more than just bacteria.
Yeah.
We're also yeast, fungus, viruses. Bacteria is a very small part of our microbiome. So that being said, when people are like, I'm just going to throw bacteria at my gut, but they're still eating the things that are inflaming them, are making them sick, that bacteria is not going to live in that environment. So you take a good bacteria strain, it needs to eat, it needs to feed on, it needs to have like a home. It'd be like if I dropped you in the middle of like chaos and you'd be like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
That's what these bacteria are doing. So it's like, they're not going to survive in a terrain that's not made for them. So they need the food that's going to make them thrive and flourish. Now, coming back to a carnivore way of eating, and I think everyone should listen to their body and do whatever they want to do. And I think majority of people, if they just cut processed food, seriously,
That baseline.
just cut processed food, you
No
feel
one can argue there.
amazing, you know? I always joke with people, I'm like, you go into the grocery store and it's edible plastic is what I call it. Like a lot of the food there's edible plastic. And just to get into this tangent, I know that this is going to go off on a little, but the labeling laws in America are really, really lax. I don't know if you know much about that.
Unfortunately, but I don't think our listeners do. So
Okay, so the labeling laws are extremely lax in America. There is, I believe, a 20% margin of error that's allowed. And then natural and artificial flavors. Those both can be anything.
I hate the term natural flavors.
Anything. Literally anything. So you see that on your label. It can be sugar.
Yeah.
And they can hide sugar in so many ways. Dextrose. Like there's so many different, just look it up online. There's like a million names for sugar. The average American's consuming way too much sugar.
Yeah.
And this is where this leads into the autoimmune thing.
Yeah.
Sugar feeds a pathogen. It feeds a yeast that we all have in our bodies called Candida.
Yes.
So
I'm so glad you brought this up. Go on. I have a story on that as well.
yeah, and I have a theory on, I have so many theories on Candida and I've
Yeah.
been making so many connections on it that I'm like, this is insane. And people are coming to me and they're like, you are like, I've never thought about this, but you're so spot on. It feeds this yeast that turns into a pathogenic form of fungus that is so hard to get rid of. So hard to get rid of. Like this thing, it's been around since before the dinosaurs, right? So it's very good at surviving. And I think it is the top reason people have gut health issues is the yeast turns into this fungus and it is so hard to get rid of. So they have these reoccurrent issues.
Right.
And tracing back my autoimmune, it was like clear as day to me that that was what I was struggling with. And that's why carnivore works so good is because it doesn't feed the yeast. So when people go on these Candida diets, they're still having some starch. That starch can feed and keep alive the fungus. And the fungus is so smart that it will create biofilms and things like that to keep itself alive.
Yeah.
So even if you did a diet for 90 days and then you were to go back to the standard American diet or even start to reintroduce like a banana or like food like that, it can re-trigger the flare of Candida. And then people are like, it didn't work, or they're like defeated. And I want to be the voice of hope and, you know, to people is you can totally get rid of this. It is really hard, but it's worth it because that was my journey was I had to go through getting rid of this and healing my body that way. And once you do, I mean, it's like you become like limitless. It's crazy. I just think so many people are dealing with this. And I've talked to practitioners who've said that 99% of their clientele have candidal overgrowth when they test for it. And it's so hard to test for because the stool tests are often wrong. Unless you have severe candida, it's not going to show up in your stool because it's not down in the large intestine.
Right.
It's up in, it's more SIFO. It's more in the small intestine. Or it's a skin fungal infection, which can be white spots on the skin. You probably see that a lot when you're at the beach in Florida, you know. Or it can be oral thrush, esophagus, or it can be SIFO or nasal passages. So there's like so many different places it can hide, which is why a lot of people don't catch it.
No, it's everywhere. And I'm so glad you brought this up. So I will talk you through like my even story of being misinformed about it. So I had a friend, one of my best friends since high school, and we have, stayed in touch over the years, et cetera. And she was telling me, oh God, this was a couple of years ago. And she's very blunt. And I love this about her. She's like, we're talking. She's like, I'm feeling bad. She was going to doctors, not figuring it out. She texted me one day. She's like, I have a full body yeast infection. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I have
It sounds so bizarre, right?
And I was like, are we talking? Because like we're both females. I'm like, are we talking? She's like, no.
Oh, people think it's like vaginal. Like when they say
exactly
yeast infection, people think they automatically assume, and it's not always. It's oftentimes it's not that.
It's not, and but that was my own. Like I jumped right to that. Like the average person, I was like, do we talk about this in public? Like I'm like, do we need to go somewhere? And like I'm like, I'll hear about it, but I don't know if you want to tell me. And then she's like, no, hear me out. And so she was feeling like crap constantly and like couldn't figure it out. Oh, all of it. And she is ridiculously smart. Like I'm talking like law school, the whole thing, brilliant woman. And she's like, I feel like shit all the time, and eventually figured it out. But hers was all internal. Long story short, she started working with a dietitian, and she's feeling like she's good. I have another client that I met last year. And so actually I'll say it. First one was a friend, then now a client comes to me last year and she's like, so I have this thing called Candida overgrowth. And I was like, tell me more. And so she came up to me. She came up to me as a nutrition client, and we were trying to figure out ways because she went to a couple doctors, and this doctor wanted to do amazing. He gave her all the information in the form of like a packet that was like 9 pages long, and it was clear, but it was all good info, just a little hard to navigate. So she essentially gave me this thing like, help me sift through this. And I had spent the years getting a little more educated about the Candida overgrowth, but she caught hers through the skin. And so hers presented as like the fungus on the skin. And so that's how they were able to catch it. And so two completely unrelated women, completely unrelated times, locations that I'm hearing about it. And so I was like, this has got to be more prevalent. And I didn't realize how much it was. And I started looking into it. And so while I don't want people to go, okay, well, I'm tired. Oh my God, I have an overgrowth of yeast in my body. Like there's many factors, but always educate yourself about the natural like biology that you have and go, okay, there could be more. And the problem with anything yeast oriented, gut related, autoimmune related is it is a process of exclusion. And so you have to get tested for everything else. And the problem when you get tested for everything else is you get so fatigued of going to the doctor, and it's frustrating. And it's, I have people that I speak to that are like, I got to call my primary and make another appointment, and they give up. And so like people like you, like being, and I will say to recap the other story, the other girl's great now. So I'm really like, you can heal yourself. And both people that I've personally been encountering that do that heal themselves through gut, and they heal themselves through their food. And so we're so quick to, while your nutrition, if you have, God forbid, if you've been diagnosed with cancer, something traumatic, like please go to the doctor and find ways around it. But realize that for a lot of things that when it comes to kind of finding your homeostasis again, nutrition goes so far, and your input, you're only as good as what you put in. Right. And so it's why I love you. Like, I love that you really are this like shining beacon of hope of like, you've gone, like, I didn't realize, like, to be honest with you, the level of trauma you've been through from a healing perspective, I'd say physically and mentally. And now, I mean, I originally, when I talked to you about the podcast, I wanted to talk about the fact that you were working out and you were pregnant. This was going to be totally different. This was about to be about you being a mom.
I do have to say this is that pregnancy, there's two hormones in pregnancy that can cause candida overgrowth. Insulin rises a lot. So this is why it's hard to lose weight after you give birth, is because your insulin is high during pregnancy, and it is a fat storage hormone. Yeah. So a lot of women, they pack on the weight during pregnancy, which is normal. And it's so hard. I want to just preface this saying pregnancy is tough. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat. It's very hard mentally, emotionally. There's a lot going on. But a great way to start to feel better and to get back into your, is just lower the carbs under 100 grams a day, I think is good, and eat whole unprocessed foods. That's a really great foundation for starting to get back to health. But another thing is your estrogen's really high. So with those two things really high, it's like prime hormonal breeding grounds for gut dysbiosis. So a lot of women tell me that postpartum, they had anxiety, depression, which is so common. Tons of issues postpartum, and a lot of it, I think, is the gut dysbiosis. And the one thing that Candida feeds a lot on is estrogen. So having that high estrogen level, if you're going into a pregnancy, it's good to optimize before you get there or during the time you're in pregnancy, is just lower the processed foods or completely get rid of them and eat the whole foods and try and focus on things that are healthy for the body. I know the doctors will say, don't eat steak, don't eat red meat. I lived on red meat in my pregnancy and I felt fucking great.
Yeah. And you were listening to your body though. That's the whole point.
Body.
You listen to what your body wanted.
But I think for the majority of people, if they were to just get rid of the, Dunkin' Donuts, the ultra processed foods, they would feel so much better in pregnancy and they'd have a really good experience. Because I did have a good experience. I just don't like being pregnant because I like my body.
That's fair.
I like to, not have sciatic pain. I like to not, be carrying a big
balloon
baby
in front of you and having to pee every 5 minutes.
I love my daughter, but having to pee every 5 minutes is
She's
not
really
ideal.
great out.
I'm very, I'm very active. I was telling you, I work three different jobs. I'm working out almost every day. And it's having that lifestyle, being pregnant was very hard to do that.
I believe that. Do you bring her around because you're tell us a little bit more about that. So you're a realtor.
Yes.
You have your whole health oriented field that you still work a lot within. How do you're a mom, which is a job in itself as well. So how do you, and then there's the beauty and the makeup aspect.
Yeah. Which is just pretty much virtual, but
how do you do all that?
So I try to, it's very intuitive. If I have some downtime, I'll do a couple posts or something like that. But what I really do is I integrate her into my life so much. She's basically me. She's the little mini. And everyone knows when they're working with me that she's going to be along for the ride for the most part. I had a meeting yesterday and I was like, Mom, can you come watch her? Because it's a builder meeting. I didn't want her to be. Yeah. She's a little fussy right now. So I'm like, just watch her. But for the most part, she knows all my clients. She comes with and they love her. And she usually sleeps throughout the entire time. So it's just a thing where I knew having this child, I don't have someone watching her day in and day out. So it's she's just gonna be part of the crew, She's my little assistant who doesn't do anything. She's just cute,
Honestly, she makes a good salary. Yeah, that's free room, board, the whole thing.
Yeah.
That balancing is so important. But I think you were also teaching yourself balance for you were, from when I first met you too, you were all in on everything you're doing all the time. You are so diligent. You're taking care of being, at the time it was soon to be a mom. You're taking care of your body. You're taking care of your health. Which brings me back to the whole original reason why I wanted to at least highlight something. I know. So I'm going to bring it back. It's okay.
I hope people love it though.
Back. But it's also I have zero desire, and we were talking about this before the podcast. I have zero desire to have this I'm going to have a narrative arc and we're going to say these couple things and that's all we're going to say. Yes, there's things I wanted to touch on and we've touched on all of them, but these are real people, real anecdotes, real experiences. Because if a person, anyone listening wants to go and I want exact medical advice, please go talk to a doctor. I want exact dietitian advice, go to a dietitian. They know there are experts everywhere. But sometimes it's the real people and the real stories that's what got me
through the autoimmune stuff, was hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
Because stories give you hope.
Yes.
So without hope, it's really hard to make it through the really tough times that you're going through.
Yeah.
So for me, hearing other people's success and their stories, I think that was one of the most important parts of my healing journey was hearing that you're not alone in it and that people have overcome what you're going through. So I hope that everything I put out online, I'm I hope that this reaches people in that way, where it's it's a positive impact on someone's life. If I can change someone's life just by my story, and that's why I share so openly, is because when people did that before me and I gained benefit off that, I want to be that for other people. Because I think if you've gone through something really hard, talking about it is therapeutic, but it pays it forward to the next person. Because I feel very lucky. I always talk about how this is my second lease on life. I'm lucky to be here. So for me, it's really just a thing where it's, good vibes, it's putting out that positivity into the world where, there could be someone who's struggling right now who, if they hear this, they could go on to overcome it and do some really great things in the world. So,
and even sometimes just giving them the hope that, oh wait, there could be more. Because the amount of people that talk to me and they're just I will give them some feedback. They're like, oh my God, it feels so good to just hear that someone else understands this. I'm like, there's a lot of like, everyone's so siloed. And they just really feel like, despite the fact that we are more connected than ever before, we are more lonely than ever before.
There's a lot of fake shit online too.
So much. It's so bad.
So you got to listen to yourself when it comes to things like that. And I think like we were saying in the beginning of the episode, like how people are, there's so much information overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bad advice online, and there's a lot of like fake stuff online. I think you just got to listen to what resonates with you, and also like what you got to try stuff on for yourself and see, does this really like work? You know, there was a funny pregnancy reel online where this doctor, I don't know what kind of doctor she was, but she was saying, I think she was like an OB. She was saying, don't walk upstairs when you're pregnant because it can cause a miscarriage. Bitch, I just moved into a 3-story townhome. You're telling me that I'm going to miscarry because of the house I live in? No fucking way.
That's terrifying for
terrifying.
people.
And like, I kind of laughed it off because I'm like, okay, this is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But for the average person who's watching that, who's scared to death anyways, because pregnancy is scary.
My gosh,
you don't want to make any mistakes. You're like on high alert. To hear that, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, like what? Like, please don't give me any more fear in the world. Like, I'm good. Like,
and like, what are you gonna do? Go move into a tent? Like, I was just like,
a very large yurt.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. Like,
oh, see, here's the problem with social media and the clip culture we're in is gross generalizations that people take as truth and they don't dig it. Like, maybe that doctor had seen a study about exertion, or maybe it was falling on stairs. Like, there's so many things
nuanced
that could have been part of that. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen the clip and I don't know if I want to, but it'll make me mad.
Yeah, it's trash. Don't watch
it. But it's, a person sees a bite-sized clip and they go, this is truth. I found out the other day that I think the average now attention span is 6 seconds.
Oh, TikTok, blame TikTok. And 100%. I guess Coco Melon too.
Yeah, that's probably. And like, we see something, okay, storing that as truth. And like, we see all these things because we're just scrolling. And like, how do we navigate that? How do we go through it? So that's why it's so important to have these conversations. And I just trust your gut, I guess, and all the way, trust your gut and take care of your gut. And so I want to round it out with the question I keep wanting to bring up because I keep getting distracted.
Do it.
And then we're doing it. You were working out pregnant. I'm going to get to this. I'm going to get through this topic. You were working out and I love that for you. But honestly, the most important part was I saw you back after, and I didn't know you'd have a C-section. I saw you back after a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I love your thought on this, but I'm convinced that you taking care of yourself so well during pregnancy, staying moving, allowed you to recover faster. And again, there's a bunch of asterisks that every doctor I know is going to text me, including my brother, that's like, make sure that they're taking care of themselves. And yes, like if you are on bed rest, stay on bed rest, don't go on a run. But you healed faster than anyone I've ever seen. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'll say this. If you're working out while pregnant, do the modifications. If something feels off, I modified a lot of things. You did. But overall, I was able to keep up pretty good. I didn't run my entire pregnancy. So I know a lot of women who do, and that's fine. But for me, I want to keep my cortisol low and keep my stress low. Yeah. But this was the perfect workout for me. I mean, 30 minutes, I was in and out.
Yeah.
But 100%, no doubt that the workouts plus nutrition during pregnancy and prior to pregnancy too, because that matters, but during pregnancy especially, allowed me to recover quicker and be back in the gym quicker. It was 14 days until I came back, and I probably jumped the gun a little early, but here's the thing is that I wasn't coming in here killing myself in the gym. When I came back, I was doing 3-pound weights, like really light weights, and sometimes no weights.
Yeah.
I was just moving because I wanted to be back in the atmosphere. I wanted to be back moving my body. So I wasn't doing like hardcore workouts, but I was modifying it to be what I could do and what I could handle because I knew that movement was better than nothing.
Right.
So it's about taking it in phases, but I knew that, if I stayed consistent, because that's the thing with anything.
Yeah.
You stay consistent in your workouts, your nutrition, you're going to recover quicker. It's almost like you become superhuman because it's like you're optimizing your body every way through something that's really hard because pregnancy and childbirth are very, very hard and recovery is challenging too. But I promise anyone watching this, if you do listen to your body first and foremost, talk to your doctor if you have any concerns. But a lot of times doctors will say, oh, don't push yourself in workouts. But when you build that strength and that muscular strength, your body's going to repair so much quicker.
Right.
So I'm a huge advocate of people staying very active during pregnancy, given the fact that they're healthy enough to stay active during pregnancy.
Yes, and that is very valid. And I know you have a lot of content about that on your own page, and we're going to make sure that in the descriptions and the bios, we're going to make sure we have links for you because you're pretty great to follow. And I love hearing all your stories.
Thank you. My content's all over the place.
It is. I love it.
It's fun. It's funny. We love it. It's a good corner of the internet. That's what I was saying.
It's like we got a little bit of beauty, a little bit of real estate, and then just
everything.
like mom stuff. So
yes.
But thank you so much I know you got almost no sleep too because you were being a mom.
I haven't slept in like a year. Like I'm going off fumes at this point.
I know, but you were amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
This was awesome. And we'll have to have you back soon. And, maybe we'll have like your little with you sometime.
I just want to say I was honored to be here, and I absolutely love all that you're doing in this show. Is kick ass, and I can't wait to see it evolve.
Thanks. I appreciate it.